welcome back to Change the Reel. Today I will be giving my viewpoints on Star Wars The Last Jedi. I waited about 2 weeks before deciding to sit down and do this review because I wanted to make sure that it was I had the time to process everything and actually really think about what I wanted to say about this movie and what I really wanted to see what everybody else was saying. First off, I will be giving spoilers, so if you have not watched it yet, now is the time to just turn off this video and just ignore it. But if you want me to, if you have seen the movie or you don't care about spoilers, then I'm going to spoil the heck out of this movie. First off, I just want to point out a few things that I thought was inaccuracies or just things that bothered me while I was watching the movie. These are not necessarily bad points or it could just be my personal opinion and stuff like that. These are just things that stuck out to me as I watched the movie. The first one is a small little detail, but it's a small detail, but it's a detail that kind of hinges on the entire plot of the entire movie, and it's just a small little thing. And it's just a line. It's one of the lines in the movie in which, at the main beginning, they get the fleet, the Rebel fleet, or the Resistance fleet, they get tracked through hyperspace. And they made a big deal to point out in the movie that, what do you mean they tracked us through hyperspace? That you can't track people through hyperspace. That's impossible. And the first thing I thought when I heard that line was, since when has it been impossible to track people through hyperspace? There are many examples in previous movies of people tracking ships through hyperspace. You got the first one that pops in my head, the very first movie, Episode 4, The New Hope. They tracked the Millennium Falcon through hyperspace. You might say, oh, they might have had a device or something on the Millennium Falcon tracking them. Sure, that's possible. But again, they said the technology doesn't exist to track people through hyperspace. If there's a tracking device on there that you can track through hyperspace, that means there's technology to it that exists. Not only that, you have Darth Maul tracking the Queen's ship in Episode 1. They tracked it. It went through hyperspace. They tracked it. In Episode 2, you had Obi-Wan tracking Jango Fett's ship. Sure, he's using a tracking device, but still yet, that's technology. That's showing you that they have technology to track ships through hyperspace. Not only that, in Rogue One, they've established they can track ships through hyperspace. The last shot in Rogue One is Princess Leia's ship escaping through hyperspace. And the beginning shot, which should lead you right up to Episode 4, which is what they want you to believe. So, if she's gone off into hyperspace, that means that they should be able to track her. But yet, in Episode 4, in the beginning of Episode 4, we see that they tracked her to Tatooine. So that shows you that they can track people through hyperspace. And and they don't have technology to track people through hyperspace is ridiculous. Now, they didn't specify exactly what they meant by tracking people. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult. Maybe it's a new device or new something else that makes the calculations easier and less, and maybe you can pinpoint it down. I can maybe understand that too, but the movie didn't set it up that way. The movie specifically said tracking ships through hyperspace is impossible, which doesn't make sense. So that's one of the very first things that jumped out at me from this movie that I just went, what? One of the main issues I have with this movie is that the new group of characters that they've created for these new group of movies. Nothing to do with the actors. I think the actors are doing a great job on the performances. I mean the characters. This comes down to writing more than it comes down with acting performances. I just don't really... This is the same issue with The Force Awakens. I just didn't care. I didn't care about any of the characters. The only one in The Force Awakens that I kind of somewhat cared about was Finn. They pretty much poo-pooed that in this movie. So I really don't care that much for his character. I really don't like Kylo Ren. I think his character is one of the weakest and worst bad guys I think I've ever seen. It's literally a teenager having a temper tantrum the entire time. Even in this movie, he's basically having temper tantrums. And no, I want more from a bad guy than that. And Rey, I just don't like Rey. She does nothing. And I'll get with that in a moment. Poe, I don't like Poe. I don't like... You start off liking him in Force Awakens, but by the end of the movie, I don't like him. And the same thing here. I just don't like him. They had the opportunities to make me like him in this movie, and they didn't do it. I don't like the character. So, and the only new character that I was actually starting to like, I was really starting to like him, and that was Supreme Leader Snoke. I was actually starting to like this character. I was like, wow, he's doing some really cool things with the Force that I've never seen people do, and he's really coming off of as a really good bad guy. And then, they killed him. Now, it could be a trick. He might not be dead, but from what I can tell in the movie, he's dead. I mean, they could possibly bring him back, but I can't go by ifs and maybes. They killed him. And I'm like, okay, that makes Kylo in charge. And I don't like Kylo. And so you got this situation where all these main new characters, speaking of some character plots, the entire storyline with Poe didn't need to happen. It aggravates me because it's basically they're creating drama where there shouldn't be any drama. They are force creating this drama, basically by not telling Poe that there is a plan. You don't have to tell him what the plan was. You just have to tell him that there was a plan. And even when you did tell him the plan, he was perfectly down and okay with it. So, what was the problem with telling him the plan or telling him that there was a plan? Only thing that did was created this whole entire drama that didn't need to be there. It was completely force created by the director. It's just like, we're just going to artificially create this drama that does not need to be there. And not only that, that entire thing creates the whole entire Finn and Rose storyline, which again, didn't necessarily need to be there. Or it just created a real weird reason for it to be there, which ultimately fails and causes the First Order to almost wipe out the entire rebellion. And then you got the fact that he mutinies the ship, all because of this one stupid aspect. Just tell them you have a plan. That's all you have to do, and the situation is solved. But no, that's not what they do. That drives me nuts. And they're setting up Poe to be like probably maybe the new leader of the Resistance or Rebellion now, since they're now officially calling themselves a Rebellion again. I think they're setting him up to be the leader, and I think this is a really bad decision because he comes off as an asshole and he comes off as completely 100% shellfish. He is a showboat. He likes to show off, and his showing off gets other people killed. And that's the main problem I have with this character. He thinks he's right all the time, and he gets people killed because of it. And it starts off with The Force Awakens. You start off liking the character. He starts off pretty likable. He starts off very bragging. He brags. He boasts a lot. He has a very big ego of himself, and which I can maybe forgive at the beginning of that movie because they're building up the character and we gotta show we don't know who this character is, so we gotta maybe show that but they're a little forceful at it. We gotta show you that the character is a good pilot and he's a good guy, but they're kind of forcing it onto you a little bit. But I'm okay with that. But when they apparently killed him off, then they bring him back towards the end. That entire thing kind of makes him look like an asshole at the end of that movie. I'm pretty sure, and I know it's unintentional, because this is the reason why. At the beginning, because he was going back to Jakku because he was trying to get his droid, which has the map, so he could bring back to the Resistance. Okay, I get that. They crash land. Next thing we know, we see him with the Resistance again. So what did he do? Did he wake up on Jakku and then all of a sudden he went, oh, screw the droid and screw the map, I'm going back home? It doesn't fit with what they've established earlier, and it makes him look like an asshole. I'm sure that was unintentional, because from what I've read and what I've heard in the original script, it called for him to die in that crash. But J.J. Abrams liked the character so much they brought him back later. But if you're going to bring him back, you got to have a good reason to bring him back, a good way to bring him back, and he just shows up. But it doesn't work with the script. It doesn't explain how he got there and why he decided to leave the droid. Because as far as he knows, if he wakes up on Jakku, as far as he knows, the droid is still there. So that made him look like an unintentional asshole. And I'm like, okay, I just didn't like him from that point on. So they had an opportunity in this movie to make him a better character, and they failed epically at the start by him disobeying orders. Whether or not you agree with him or not, he was still disobeying direct orders. I know they're not formal military, but that makes him come off like an asshole. What, you think Leia might not have had a plan to deal with that dreadnought carrier? I'm pretty sure she was quite fully aware of what the damage capability of that dreadnought carrier could have done. So, you tell me she might not have had a plan to deal with it? He dealt with the consequences when he got back on the ship. But the main point is that his disobeying a direct order got many people killed. Then you got him sending Rose and Finn off on that secret mission, which ultimately gets more people killed. And then you have him mutinying. Which again, all this stuff just shows you how much of an ego that this man has and how much of an asshole he looks. Because his ego is getting overpowering his brain. And I just don't like the character. You're trying to make the audience love him, but you're forcing it. Now let's get on to Leia. Other than the fact that I felt that I liked Leia, but I just don't feel like there was really any strong moments with her in this movie, which is going to be a shame given the fact that they're probably not going to use her at all in the next movie. And that's a really lost opportunity for her to have gone out spectacularly in this movie. Let me talk about one of the scenes in the movie that a lot of people seem to complain about, which is the Leia Superman scene, which has now been dubbed by most people. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Leia using the Force to pull herself back into a ship from space after she got blown out into space. I agree, the scene looks, the way it's presented, the scene looks cheesy, the scene looks hokey. I agree with that. The overall concept, I'm okay with. I'm okay with the idea of her getting blown out into space and using the Force to pull herself back onto the ship. I'm okay with that. The way they did it, though, the way the scene was executed and the way they done it, doesn't work at all. It comes down to pacing, it comes down to editing, and yeah, it didn't work, because what you saw was she gets blown out into space. Then we see the debris field. Then we cut to another scene on the First Order ship. We have an entire scene there. Blah, 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 people talking. Then we cut again back to the debris field. Then we see Leia floating in the debris field Mind you, at this point in the movie, the Rebels ship, the Resistance ship, the Rebel ships, whatever. I'm going to just call them the Rebels from now on, because they switched in the movie. So the Rebel ships are going full speed ahead, as fast as they can go without going the light speed. So they're going full speed ahead as fast as they can go. All right? They got sucked out in the debris field. They're going full speed. That means they should have left the debris field behind them. The debris field should not be going the exact same speed in the exact same direction as the other ships. All right? They're constantly going forward. All right? By the time you cut back to Leia, they should have been way past where Leia was at. Relapse of time that the movie presents to us, she should be dead. And that's all it comes down to pacing. Now, if this shot was done this way, it would have been a far better scene. Bridge gets hit. She gets sucked out into the space, and as soon as she was sucked back out into space, she uses the Force to drag herself back onto the ship. One short scene, that would have been pretty cool. That would have made the shot far more believable in my eyes, and it would have probably been a much more awesome, better looking scene. Overall concept, I liked. The execution, not so much. Even though I really like Yoda being in the movie, I really did like that scene. The entire scene with Yoda was good. It was a beautifully shot scene, and it was a beautiful dialogue between the two characters. It was a really nice moment. But that main ending, when you see that shot with the Jedi books at the ending on the Millennium Falcon, pretty much it makes that scene irrelevant and doesn't need to be in the movie. Mind you, I know somebody said to me that, well, it's not about the books, it's about Luke learning a lesson. That's fine. That's fine. Luke's lesson doesn't change. And I can see the point on that. Luke's lesson doesn't change. Luke doesn't know the books are missing. Luke is going there to destroy the books. He's going there to destroy the books to make sure the Jedi don't come back. So he's going there to destroy those books. Luke must think that those books are there. Because if not, him just going over there is just him destroying a random tree. So he thinks the books are there. Sure, there's a lesson that Yoda teaches him about it's okay to fail and all this other stuff. That's good. But Yoda destroys the tree and the books. Because at this moment, us, the audience, think the books are still in the tree. So, at that point, we think that Yoda agrees with Luke that the Jedi should die. Alright? Or does it care whether or not the Jedi die? Either or, they're saying something with that moment. But by showing that the books are on the Millennium Falcon means that Yoda specifically knew that the books were not there in that tree. The books were not there. So destroying the tree was pretty much teaching Luke a lesson, but it wasn't telling the audience the same message. That, yes, Yoda knew the books weren't there. He destroyed the tree because why not? It's just a tree. So Yoda wasn't destroying the Jedi. The Jedi, he knew the books were safe. He knew the books were going to be used. So it changes the whole entire meaning of that scene to the audience. Maybe not to Luke, but to the audience. It makes that scene lose what made the scene kind of special in my head. Okay, let's get down to the three main issues of this movie that I just don't care for. And let's do a countdown from least worst to worst. Number 3 is the fact that I still, after 2 movies, from Force Awakens to now, I still don't know what's going on with the grand scheme of things. I don't understand the organizations. I don't understand who are the Resistance? Who is the Republic? Who are the First Order? These are basic storyline questions that are never answered in The Force Awakens, and they're not answered here. I don't understand. Sure, the Republic capital system was destroyed in The Force Awakens. All right. Okay, I get that. How big was the Republic? How big is the First Order? They don't tell us. They don't tell us who are these people. Why are they up in arms? Why are they so pissed off? One thing they do is they come off as the Empire, but they're not the Empire, right? Or are they? I have no idea. The movies don't explain it to you. Now, I know many people are probably going to say, well, it's explained in the books, in the comic books, and all this other stuff, and the video games. And my point of view is, if I have to read the books and the comic books to understand what's going on in your movies, that's bad story writing. And and one of the things that Disney made perfectly clear when they got rid of the old EU and made those legends, when they got rid of the old EU books and decided to do the new movies with fresh writing and all this other stuff, one of their main excuses was, we don't want the audience to have to go back and read years and years and years of material to understand what's going on in their movies. Then they turn around and they make two movies in which, for me to understand what's going on in their movies, I have to go and read material. That makes no sense. I shouldn't have to read the new extended universe books to understand what goes on in your movies. I shouldn't have to do that. I did read the old extended universe before they got rid of it. I have refused to read any of the new stuff. That's a personal preference to me. But I shouldn't have to read the new material to understand the movies. It never was a requirement to read any of the old books to understand any of the old movies. You didn't have to read any of the books to understand the prequels. They stand pretty much alone. In fact, I thought the books kind of enhanced and made the experience of the prequels better. But that's my personal opinion. But you didn't have to read the books. There was nothing that wasn't explained to you in the movies that you had to get elsewhere. Things were pretty much encapsulated in the movies that if you just wanted to watch the movies, you'd get the story. And in this one, for me to understand what in the world's going on, I have to read books. And no, I'm not doing that. If you can't tell me the story correctly and tell me what's going on, and this is an example. Just looking at the two movies, without going through without reading any of the books or any of the other stuff that's going on, any of the comic books or anything else like that, just by looking at the movies by themselves, you can make a clear assumption from The Last Jedi that the First Order ships that they've got there, that's all they've got. You can make a clear assumption that those ships is all there is. From what I can assume that they just had those ships and that Starkiller base. And that was it. Is it true? I don't know. Because the movie doesn't tell you this grand scope. I have no idea who the hell Snoke is. I don't know how big they are, how many systems they have, how massive their military is. None of this is shown or told. No idea who they are. No idea what their goal is, other than it is to destroy the Republic. How big is the Republic? Were they just those 4 or 5 worlds that was destroyed in The Force Awakens? If so, that is a very weak Republic. So, how big were they? I can understand that they maybe didn't have an organized military like the Old Republic did before the Clone Wars. I can understand that. But they're saying that in this movie that the Republic is no more. So you're telling me that you destroyed the Capitol and all the other systems just surrendered? That makes no sense. Even if they didn't have a Republic military, I'm pretty sure that the worlds themselves would have individual armies and their own security forces and stuff like that. They wouldn't go easily and surrender easily to the First Order. You do have to take ground. You do actually have to send troops in and take ground. This is basically, with these two movies, we basically seen maybe 3 days? 3 or 4 days of activity? It's probably maybe been a week max. A week? Really? Has the Republic really fallen? I don't know. The scope of scale isn't there. And I don't understand the government structures. And they don't make it clear on what in the world is going on. Why should I care that the rebellion wins and the First Order is defeated? Other than the fact that the First Order clearly looks like stormtroopers and the old Empire. Other than that, maybe they have a good point. I don't know, because they never explained it to me. Because I don't know who these people are. It's missing that scope. There's missing that explanation. That was one of the main problems of the Force Awakens. They were so interested in doing explosions and doing all this nostalgia that they forgot to actually put story into the mix. And story is important. Number 2 issue I have with the movie is Rey. I'm not going to sit here and say because Rey's a Mary Sue, she is. But just because you're a Mary Sue doesn't mean you can't be a good character. The problem with it is that they're making her out to be a hero, and I am confused to understand what exactly has she done in both movies that constitute her to be a hero. What has she done? She rescued BB-8 and in turn made sure BB-8 got to the Resistance. All right. After that, what did she do? She had a fight with Kylo. Does that make her a hero? No. Doesn't make her a hero. It just means that she had a fight with Kylo. She didn't do anything in The Force Awakens to help destroy the Starkiller base. She did nothing in that movie that constitutes her being a hero. And then look at her in this movie, The Last Jedi. What did she do? Really, look at it. What did she actually do to constitute her being a hero? What did she do? Nothing. She did nothing. She goes and trains with Luke, which she gets 2 lessons. That's not training. And then she disobeys. She goes off and she tries to bring Kylo back to the good side, which she fails, of course. You can say, well, she was there when they killed Snoke. She didn't kill Snoke. Kylo killed Snoke. Sure, she fought the guards, but is that really her being a hero? She's doing it so she doesn't die. So she's very self-serving, and then she shows up in battle in 2 spots. She shoots a couple of TIE fighters out of the sky and has them chase away. Okay, fine. And then we don't see her again until towards the end when she lifts some heavy boulders out of the way so the Resistance can get on the Rebellion can get onto the Millennium Falcon. Okay, she helps the Rebellion at the end. Does that constitute her being a hero? What exactly? Can somebody please explain to me exactly what has she done in these 2 movies that will constitute her being a quote-unquote hero? She didn't blow up a Death Star. Luke did that. That constitutes him being a hero. Like all these things that Anakin did in the prequels, that makes him a hero. So what exactly did Rey do that wasn't self-serving and for selfish reasons? What exactly did she do to help everybody else to constitute herself being a hero? She did nothing. So when it comes down to that aspect, she is not a hero. And that is one of the main issues with Rey. Not that she's a Mary Sue, she totally is. But if you're going to make the Mary Sue character, at least let her be a hero. Let her contribute and help out with the story that you're trying to tell and actually save the day. She doesn't save the day. She doesn't help people. Okay, the number one thing I have wrong with this movie is Luke. It's not Mark Hamill, because I think one of the best things about this movie is Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's performance, by far none, was one of the best performances I've probably seen in a while. I give high ranks and praise to Mark Hamill's performance. It was amazing. It's worth the watch just to watch Mark Hamill perform. And it makes me wonder, why doesn't Mark Hamill get more acting roles? Because it's like, he's clearly a good actor. It's not the performance. I really enjoyed Mark Hamill. And I would gladly watch this movie multiple times just to watch that performance over and over again, because I think it's one of the best performances I've ever seen. That being said, the performance he gave us was not Luke Skywalker. And that's the problem. Even though the performance is great, it's not Luke Skywalker. Well, at least it's not the Luke Skywalker we see at the end of Return of the Jedi. At the end of Return of the Jedi, we had a character of Luke Skywalker in which he went directly in front of the Emperor and Darth Vader on just the sole premise of turning Darth Vader back to the light side. One of the most badass, evilest characters in the Star Wars universe. He goes in front of him to try to turn him back to the light side, because there is just a small part of him that is still good. It's just a small part. But he's got to try. And he succeeds. That character that would have done that, I do not see in any form or fashion why that character would even have the notion or the thought. I understand he didn't actually go through with the idea of killing his nephew. But the fact that he had the notion of killing his nephew, he even had the lightsaber lit on killing his nephew, just because there was the hint of him going down to the dark side. Just the hint of him going down to the dark side was enough to put the thought in his head, that not only the thought in his head, but the notion of actually carrying through with killing his nephew. Just that instant. That destroyed the character. That destroys the character whatsoever, because that contradicts everything that goes on with the core of what Luke Skywalker was at the end of Return of the Jedi. I'm not against him being a hermit. I'm not against him being on the planet, isolated. I'm not even against him being cut off from the Force. I'm not against almost any of the story aspects that they did with Luke Skywalker in this movie. I'm not even against the fact that they killed him off at the end. I'm not against any of those facts. I understand they want to make a new movie, and they want to make an original movie, and they want to do something different, and they want to do some things that they want to change up the characters and everything else, and it's a passing of the torch. I understand this. I understand this perfectly well. There are ways to get Luke onto the island and doing what he did, basically shot for shot, almost exactly the same, without him betraying certain character traits that was put there in the original trilogy. You could do it. It comes down to bad writing, is the reason why they did it. They went the easy way instead of actually thinking about a good way. And talking about the ending, I felt the ending was weak. With the whole Luke projection, and he dies he never actually left the planet, and he died, and I thought that was weak. It was weak. And it's not because they killed the character off. If they wanted to kill Luke off, that's fine. I know he's going to be back in the next movie. He'll be back as a Force ghost in the next movie. I know this. Everybody else should know this too. There's no ambiguity here. There's no trick. You should expect it. I have no problem with them killing the character. I understand, because it is a passing of torture, passing it to the new crew and everything else, and I understand this. This is the reason why it didn't bother me that they killed Han Solo off. It doesn't bother me in one bit. It didn't shock me. It didn't bother me. There was nothing wrong with it in my eyes in any type of story aspect at all. If you're going to kill him off, at least do a better job at it. It was just weak. Imagine the scene if he physically been there. And that's all they had to do. They just had to make him physically be there. That way, Imagine how much more of a badass scene that would have been. And it could have played out almost exactly the same. It would have played out exactly the same. You would have not lost any of your story. Imagine the scene of him physically being there and all those walkers firing their blasters at him, and he's just still standing there after the smoke clears. And he's physically there, and that would have made him 10 times more badass. And then you can have the whole entire other scenes play out almost exactly the same. And at the end, Kylo Ren cutting Luke down. And not only would it made Luke more of a badass, but it would also give me more respect to the character of Kylo Ren, which, by the way, you need to give Kylo Ren more respect if you want me to like that character. It would have helped out in two fronts. It would have made Luke go out more of a kick-ass way and more of an emotional way, in my point of view. It would have been more fitting end for the character, and it would have upped the notch on Kylo, and it would have made me like the character of Kylo just a little bit more. So I would actually maybe go into the next movie, actually maybe looking forward to see what happens. But the way they did it, it just made me go, I didn't feel anything. My overall impression of the movie, did I like it? It was alright. Definitely wasn't the best Star Wars movie I've ever seen, but it was alright. I'm not going to tell anybody to not go watch it. It was definitely better than The Force Awakens. I will give you that. It was better than The Force Awakens. I didn't walk out of the theater like in Force Awakens angry at the movie, which is always good. You should never walk out of the movie theater angry at the movie. But I also walked out not feeling too much. And this is what took me a whole 2 weeks to really come to full terms of what exactly am I feeling. Is it an overall bad movie? No, it's not an overall bad movie. It has its flaws. It's not perfect. I felt nothing moved me. I didn't care, like I said, I didn't care about the characters. And only one I was actually was really into was Luke, because I liked Mark Hamill's performance. And I was liking Snoke there for a while. But overall, nothing was like making me go, yeah, I wasn't like up on my seat. I mostly sat in my seat just like, Nothing was making me excited to be watching a Star Wars movie. I was not excited. And it took me a couple of weeks to figure out what exactly is my impression of this movie, is that it's missing something. And I couldn't tell exactly what it was missing. And what is it missing? It's missing that epicness of it. The Star Wars movies, especially the episode numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they should have this epicness. It's an epic. It's a spectacle. It's this epic galactic war. It's this huge epic movie that you're going to go watch. And I didn't feel that with this movie. Even with episode 7, even though I hate that movie, I think it's awful, I cannot say that movie suffers from that problem. Even though I don't like that movie, and I think it's worse than this movie, even though I think it's the worst Star Wars movie ever made, I can honestly say it has that epicness to it. You watch The Force Awakens, it's epic. It has that feeling. It grabs you, and it makes you, it forces you to try to love it. It has that epicness to it. It has that grand scope, even though you don't know what the hell's going on. It has that scope. It has that feeling. This movie does not have that. It has a feeling of like Rogue One. I had the same opinion watching this movie as I did when I watched Rogue One. It's good, but it didn't blow me away. It has the feeling of a side movie, which is fine for a Star Wars side movie, like the side movie like Rogue One, or the new Han Solo movie coming out. I don't expect it to have that epic feel like the episode numbers, the saga numbers, the actual saga. You can go from the main series, and you can tell a slower story or a different type of story. And that's what this movie felt like. It felt like it should have been a side story and not a main story. That's the feeling I got from it. This one just feels like, literally feels like I'm watching the next episode of a TV series. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm watching the next part 2 of The Force Awakens. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm watching the next episode of a television series. And I think that's probably why it's getting this negative review on a lot of places, and why they're getting this backlash, is that you got a lot of people who love it for the new direction that it's taken. And I'm not against new direction. New direction is fine. You got to spice things up. You got to take things in a new direction. But that's not the problem that I have with this movie. The main overall problem is just it just doesn't feel epic. And it should feel that way. Well, if you disagree with me, leave a message and tell me if I'm wrong. If you like this video, go ahead and press the like button. If you want to see more of our videos, please press the subscribe button. And of course, you can place your comments below. I look forward to hearing your comments or over on my Twitter page.